Hello and welcome to stage 17 of the Tour de France, traveling from Briançon to La Plania. We have a single breakaway rider up the road in Marco Pantani, so he's just over 2 minutes ahead of this pack of 27 riders. And Evian have done most of the work over the early climbs, and they've done some damage to their own riders high on GC because Marc Matteo has been dropped. He's the rider dingling in front of this group right here, and there he is. Now BlackBerry, well, they don't want Matteo or that other group behind them to get back on terms, so Julien Alaphilippe starting to turn the screw. And recall that Tommy Prim of BlackBerry is their highest rider on GC. He's up in 5th place overall, so a high place to defend. Evian have been strong in the team race in the past few stages, but they seem to be sacrificing their chances of winning that in favor of trying to get Andy Schleck into the yellow jersey. So for the riders in pink today, it is all or nothing, Schleck in yellow, rather than just win the team competition. And that is the man they're attacking, Stan Åkers. Åkers has been leading the race ever since that stage atop Plateau de Bay back in the Pyrenees. And although his lead has never been very large, he's been very consistent and has not really suffered at all in the past few stages. But we'll see if that changes on the last big mountain of the Tour de France. And now La Vie Claire defending the interest of Ghost of Peterson, sending some men up to the front. And the lead of Pantani down to just 30 or so seconds. So you see the injection of pace at the start of the Col de Liseron really doing a number on the field. And that is Choman Peruena in 12th place overall, so he is getting dropped. So the riders of Evian have all fallen away, and all that's left is Andy Schleck. So he'll have to try and finish it off on La Plania, and I think that'll be more easier said than done. With BlackBerry and Calme, each with 4 riders in this group, and so too does Ceramicas, so those teams in good company at the moment. And as for the mountain we're climbing right now, this is the Col de Liseron, one of the highest mountains that will ever feature in the Tour de France, just a hair shorter than the Col Daniel, which we climbed over yesterday. And the Iseron not used an awful lot in the Tour de France. Perhaps most famously, it was back in 1992, when Claudio Chiappucci, who had lost serious time to the likes of Gianni Bugno and Miguel Indurain, launched a suicidal breakaway over 190 kilometers from the finish. He rode over 6 big mountains all by himself, including this, the Col de Liseron, and won the stage atop Sestriere, taking over a minute and a half out of Miguel Indurain and moving up into 2nd place. And to this day, it might be the single greatest solo attack in the modern era of cycling. And Chiappucci went on to finish 2nd place in the Tour de France that year behind Indurain, but his escapades on that stage earned him the King of the Mountains jersey and plenty of fans, especially in Italy. Now it's another Italian, Pantani, looking very tired because he's been by himself for a long time and doing an awful lot of attacking in this 2nd week of the Tour de France. But he seems destined to go and win the climb, and this will be interesting because if he scores maximum points on this mountain and Tunisia gets nothing, then that will make things a lot closer in the King of the Mountains. So watch out and see if Tunisia tries to jump out of that peloton, score some points for himself. And Pantani just laboring up the last kilometer to the Iseron. The meters really do tick by slow when you're going uphill. And it seems the pace has turned off a bit in the peloton, so no more attacking for the moment. They have a very long descent down into the valley. So we'll go through the valley town of Val d'Isère, and then down into Bourg Saint-Maurice towards La Plania. So Félicien Vervaeke leading over the main field. And outside of Marc Matteo, I believe that the other 9 of the top 10 riders overall are still in this group. And I don't think Pantani can win this stage today unless the peloton really just decides to go for a cafe ride in the Valley Road, because it's a long way to the finish, over 65 kilometers. There's some big valley road and of course a very tall mountain at the end of it. So Pantani is going to be pretty darn tired by the time we get there, but he'll give it his best shot. Some of the sprinters were dropped early on in this stage, including Jamaldin Abdujaparov, who does not seem to be on a very good day. So his ability to get to the finish line on time is definitely a storyline to keep track of, and I'll try and keep an eye on him once the big men of the race have finished. Here's Abdujaparov, who's just about locked up that green jersey, but he still needs to actually finish the Tour de France, and this is the sort of stage that could throw a wrench in those plans. So Zulu Kingdom. Well, they still got Jan Orik to look after in the GC. They have Gert-Jan Tunissen to look after for the King of the Mountains. But for the non-climbing riders, their job today is to get Jamaldin Abdujaparov to the finish line within the time limit. And here's a rider trying to get back on terms, Choman Peruena. He's over a minute back, and I don't think he's going to get back in time to recover. So Peruena, who was a decent place on GC at the start of the day, probably going to lose an awful lot of time on La Plania. And you see Ceramigas have sent a rider to the front to keep the tempo nice and high. They don't want all those Evian riders coming back on the downhill. Blackberry as well getting in on the pacemaking. Åkers still has a teammate, that is Henny Kuiper, who's also up in the top 10 overall and a very important ally at this stage of the race. But in the final kilometers of La Plania, it's going to be up to Åkers to defend the lead on his own. And it's just a matter of strength, because Åkers does not have to attack, he merely has to follow. And that is a big advantage in the late stages of the Tour de France. And of course, there's one more big stage to think about after this one, and that is the time trial on stage 20. It's around 35 kilometers long and fairly hilly. So it should suit the climbers who can time trial well, the likes of Costa Peterson, Bjarne Riis, and even Stan Åkers. That will be the big final rendezvous for the GC riders. So the time gaps get a lot closer today. We could have a pretty epic showdown on the last stage of the Tour de France before we get into Paris. Speaking of time trials, there's Rudi Altig, a very good time trialist in his own right. Although he's been very quiet in the Tour de France, doing a lot of domestique work for Bjarne Riis. Is this an attack here? It is, it's Henri Anglade. Now that is unexpected, attacking from the front on the flat part of the course. And Henri Anglade, who's in 16th place overall. Looking to cause a bit of chaos at the front of the bike race. He's about to catch Pantani. And this works out well for his team leader Tommy Prem and his teammates back in the main field, because they don't have to chase anymore. And now it's going to be up to La Viclaire, perhaps Kelming and Bianchi, to do the work. So an interesting attack by Blackberry, but in retrospect it might be a smart one, saving the legs of the teammates till the big mountain. It seems that Choman Peruena still not back on terms, so I don't think he's going to get back on time before the final climb. That is a big loss for Evian in their hopes of winning the team competition. So as mentioned before, it's all about Andy Schleck today. We get another attack off the road, and with 28 Ks to go, David Moncoutier of the Leftovers decides to launch a move. So now we have a leading group of 3 of Marco Pantani, David Moncoutier, and Henri Anglade, representing 3 different teams. And Pantani, interestingly, is still happy to do some turns at the front, even though he's been all by himself for over 100 kilometers. And Anglade, I think, just wants a free ride to the bottom of the last mountain. And the mountain that we're going to start in a few Ks time is the mountain of La Plania, which is a ski station high above the valley of Bourg Saint-Maurice. And it was the site of a big showdown in 1987, the big alpine stage of the Tour de France. Pedro Delgado and Stephen Roach had their epic showdown, and Stephen Roach was dropped very early on the climb by Pedro Delgado, and it seemed he would lose the Tour de France because of it. But he gradually clawed his way back and made a huge effort and finished just a few seconds behind Delgado. A very iconic television moment for the sport of cycling, and because of Roach's effort that day, he would take the yellow jersey in the final time trial and win the Tour de France, becoming the first Irishman to do so. He also won the Giro d'Italia and the World Championships road race that year, and he is one of just a handful of riders to ever achieve that. And very possible that won't happen again in this modern era of the sport. It's 1987, a very historic year. Now the peloton has started the climb of La Plania, 16km from the finish. Montani and Henri Anglade have been brought back by this group of riders. Moncoutier still at large, but I don't think for very long. See, Åkers has brought himself to the front of the race. This is the climb to launch the attack, the likes of Gösta Peterson and Andy Schleck and Bjarne Riis. Now is the time to go and gain time on Stan Åkers. Calme have amassed 2 riders near the front of the group. Andy Schleck towards the back at the moment. You'll have to move up very soon, and this is the first attack. This is Pedro Delgado of the Ceramicas team. So he's in 9th place, he's ascended the GC over the past week or so. And now he's launched the first move, going for a stage win or setting it up for Andrew Hampsten. Either way, Ceramicas striking first. Very quickly, he's pulled out a 50-second lead. Vervaeke now doing the job to try and bring him back. A couple riders have been dropped, that's Chozas and Pantani. Job done for them. 11km to go, Delgado still the only rider to launch a move. So he's gained a minute on this group here. Vervaeke still riding steady at the front of the race. And Delgado, not an immediate threat to Stan Åkers, so they don't have to chase this down. And the other teams with 10km to go need to start plotting moves of their own. Vervaeke looking tired. Who's going to attack next? It's Andrew Hampsten, so Ceramicas 1-2. This is the aggressive riding we've been waiting for all season from Ceramicas to get both these great climbers up the road at the same time. And on stage 17 of the Tour de France, it's finally happening. Now Henny Kuiper sensing danger, he's brought back Hampsten, and Bjarne Riis will counter, so the big Dane on Calme. He's got some time to gain after the stage 15 losses. He's taken Peterson, Åkers, and Prim with him. Hampsten's here, Schleck is here, Delgado as well. So these are 7 of the best climbers in the Tour de France. With 7km to go, this is what's left of the elite peloton. Åkers still looks very comfortable. All his big rivals are here. Tommy Prim trying to hang on. There's Jan Ullrich and Frank Schleck trying to get back on terms. But Riis isn't going to wait for his teammate, he's going to launch again. And this time with Andy Schleck in his wheel. And Andy Schleck wants to go over the top. He's taking Stan Åkers with him. So the inevitable battle between first and second, taking stage into the last 5 kilometers. And Bjarne Riis, he couldn't follow that initial acceleration, but he's rode his way back. Hampsten and Delgado on their way as well. Peterson is not here, and Tommy Prim isn't either. They have been dropped. So these are the 5 men left fighting for a stage win in a yellow jersey. I must say they're all looking pretty tired, and Hampsten though, he's going to try again, but I don't think he has the legs to quite get away. And now Riis goes again. Bjarne Riis has opened a small gap. Andy Schleck looking to bring it back. And all these riders looking quite tired. I'm not sure if anyone's going to be able to get rid of the other ahead of the last few kilometers. But now Schleck goes, making a big effort trying to get rid of Åkers. And Åkers, he's dropped the wheel. So these 4 have gotten at least a few seconds on him. Now if they have anything left in the legs, they need to make a hard push in the last kilometers. Schleck, he kicks one more time. still taking other riders with him, and Åkers has been distanced. These riders who are so tired, but Andy Schleck making a very determined push on La Plania. He's got Pedro Delgado in his wheel. The final throws to the line, there's nothing left for a sprint between these four, and Andy Schleck looks destined to take another stage win in the Tour de France. So the Luxembourger in second place overall strikes a blow to Stan Åkers, winning the big mountain stage at La Plania. And it seems that Åkers has lost just under 50 seconds on the clock to Andy Schleck. And with the time bonus included, that's going to be about 1 minute. But still, that's enough for Stan Åkers to defend his lead in the Tour de France. So despite the efforts of Evian, who sacrificed so many riders early in the stage, and the attacks of Andy Schleck on La Plania, they were not able to gain enough time to depose Stan Åkers. And the riders who could hold on to the wheel of the Luxembourger, it was Pedro Delgado in second place, Rees third, and Andrew Hampson fourth. So a great day for the Ceramica's climbers. They'll keep ascending in the GC. And now we watch the rest of the field trickling into the finish line. There's Cyril Guimard. He's had a real tough stretch in the Tour the past week or so. There's a bunch of Evian riders down there. Jackie Durand bringing up the rear, but it seems that Abdi Japarov has gotten some help. I don't think Abdi is going to get eliminated today. Still plenty of time for him to finish. Jackie Durand in a race against time to get to the finish line. Elimination time, 1 hour and 12 minutes. And I think Durand is going to get there by the skin of his teeth. And in fact, it's going to be very close. But he's just got there with 3 minutes to spare. So all the riders who started the day have finished. And Andy Schleck, by 1 hour and 9 minutes, finishing ahead of big Jackie Durand. So a second stage win for Andy Schleck and the Evian team. He wins the stage in the same time as Pedro Delgado, who is in second place. That's his best result of the Tour. Jarno Rees in third at 9 seconds. Andrew Hampson of Ceramica's fourth at 13 seconds. Stan Åkers, the yellow jersey, in fifth at 48 seconds behind Andy Schleck, so he will keep his race lead. Jan Ullrich, an excellent day on the big mountain, in 6th place at 1 minute 40, so with a time trial still to come, Ullrich must feel good about his GC chances for a high finish. Frank Schleck, the brother of Andy, in 7th place at 1 minute 44. Goes to Peterson, a tough day, in 8th place, losing over 2 minutes. Fellow Swede Tommy Prem was in 9th at 2 minutes 24. And Paolo Salvadelli of Kelme, 10th on the stage at 3 minutes 45. Henny Kuiper and Onglad in the frame as well. And here is the general classification. Stan Åkers still leads, but it's been cut significantly down to just 26 seconds. With the hilly stage tomorrow, perhaps Andy Schleck might find those few extra seconds to take the race lead. Jarno Rees in third at 1 minute 27. Down to fourth is Gustav Peterson at 3 minutes and 9 seconds, and Andrew Hampson has climbed up into the top 5, 4 minutes 41 seconds behind Stan Åkers. Jan Ullrich is 6th, Tommy Prem 7th, Kuiper is 8th, and Pedro Delgado up into 9th place. Frank Schleck enters the top 10, although quite a long way back, over 16 minutes behind. And Magnus Bagstedt, despite the best efforts of Jackie Durand, is still the leader of the Lanterne Rouge. And I think it might stay that way all the way to Paris. There's your green jersey standings, no change in that, with Abdu Japarov still leading. Gerrit Jan Tennis still leading in the King of the Mountains, but his lead has gone way down, as Marco Pantani scored a lot of points today. So tomorrow's stage might see an interesting battle for the final polka dot jersey. In Ceramica's, against the odds of taking the lead in the team competition, their 2 best climbers were great today, so a deserved reward for Ceramica's, who struggled to score points all season. We have 1 more medium mountain stage tomorrow into Tourangelier. So if Andy Schleck's going to take the lead from Stan Åkers, or if we'll have any other shocking developments, that is the time for it to happen. We'll see you then.